It's Dick Dunscomb here. I'm bringing you a jazz rehearsal techniques and strategies clinic. I hope that you will enjoy and get some information out of it that's useful. You know, in my many years of going around and hearing various ensembles, I found kind of a litany of common problems, and you see them listed here on the screen. First is the setup of the jazz band, which is sometimes really important to the success of the playing. And, it has to be in a manner in which the professional bands of yesterday and today use it to really allow you to have the best success. Swing style basics, absolutely essential in beginning and intermediate and advanced jazz ensembles. Proper use of jazz articulations. These are all things that we're going to talk about today. Of course, the rhythm section. This is really key. I've heard so many ensembles that sound like a concert band with the rhythm section, and really that doesn't make it. So we have to figure out what the function is and how to go about doing that with the rhythm section. Clarity of sound, as in all ensembles. And last but certainly not least in mind, let's look at some possible solutions or basics needed for success. First and absolutely foremost is the students need to be able to play their instrument with good control. Without that, we're really fighting an uphill battle. Style, and in especially jazz, the swing style. That is the most important to get under control and probably the least familiar for many directors as well as students. As I mentioned before, the rhythm section, and we'll talk about that in depth as we move through the clinic today. Improvisation. You know, I've seen so many different approaches to improv throughout my years, and I think the one that I've seen with the most success is those that are using recordings and having their students transcribe them to play. Some of the early Miles Davis, certainly Louis Armstrong, even one measure at a time or two measures. They don't have to do the whole solo, but they'll get so much from doing that. And I guarantee you, it will lead to a successful outcome. Listening. You're going to hear a lot of stuff during this clinic because listening is absolutely the key to learning the jazz language. So you're going to hear a lot of different things today. So let's begin with the swing style basics. And what I say here is to listen repeatedly. And I mean very, very many times. Learn what to listen for, and we're going to talk about that as we get a little further into the clinic. Identify the jazz sound. Strive for clarity of sound. Understand the swing eighth note concept. And as almost every jazz educator today agrees, begin with the Count Basie style. Basie was the ultimate swing band, and he is a great example to work from. So let's listen to a little bit of Moten Swing. This is Count Basie. Nothing like Basie for swing. So if we're going to use Count Basie as our iconic person and lead players down the middle of the ensemble with the winds. Rhythm section placed so that they are functioning as a part of the ensemble and are able to see each other. And although it may be hard to accomplish today, no gaps in the setup. With COVID, we're having to experiment with a little bit more space. So here is the ensemble setup as used by Count Basie, Duke Ellington, most of the professional bands today. And as I mentioned in the earlier comment, the lead players are right down the middle. Trumpet, 1, trombone, 1, alto, 1. Another coupling that's important is the bass trombone, trombone 4, and bass sax, as they play many parts together. You'll also notice that I've curved the saxophone section a little bit. I found this is really helpful for the saxes to be able to hear each other, to balance, and to get really grooving together. Now, let's turn our attention to the rhythm section. My preference is for the drums to be next to the trombones. And of course, the drums and the bass are the heartbeat of the band. So they must be close together as they are pictured here. The drummer should be able to watch the bass player's right hand, and the bass player should be able to watch the ride cymbal of the drummer. That starts the engine for the bus. As you see, the piano and guitar are close together. That's important for many reasons, not the least of which is when they only have one person comping instead of both. You'll also notice that behind each of the guitar and bass, there's an amplifier. And the amplifier really should be about 3 feet behind the person. That way, that person's going to hear the same sound that is heard in the audience. So that's your basic setup, and it works. Now, how do we sound like Basie? Well, here we go again. Listen, listen, listen. You have to understand by listening what Basie is all about. And then, as the jazz masters did, hear it, sing it, play it. And that is the key to learning the language of jazz. So you see here, learning the language of jazz is, as I just stated, hear it, sing it, and play it. This is the way the jazz masters learned, and this is the way that we all will learn today. So here's an example of how that works. This is called Duke's Place, and it's by Duke Ellington, and you'll see who else. You might practice snapping your finger on 2 and 4. Keep it going.
Baby, take me down to Duke's Place.
And of course, that's Louis.
Wildest box in town is Duke's Place. Love that piano sound in Duke's Place. Saxes do their tricks in Duke's Place. Fellas swing their chicks in Duke's Place. Come on, get your kicks in Duke's Place. Take it, Duke.
All right, Louis. Again, you feel the emphasis on 2 and 4.
If you've never been to Duke's Place, take your tootsies into Duke's Place. Life is in the spin in Duke's Place. Yeah.
All right. So that's Duke's place. And that's also the place where we're going to begin to talk about articulations. We're going to use just simple two syllables here, do and dot. And those are the swing eights, and you'll feel it as we do it together. So let's do it. Here we go. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Do dot, 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 do dot. So simple and so easy to start. I would use this as a starting point for the ensemble that has not had any experience with articulations. They'll be a little bit tentative in the beginning, but as you encourage them, they'll be able to sing out. Okay, so you'll notice that we started each of the syllables with a D. Well, it's the D tone that uses best in jazz articulations. So the syllables are do, full value eighth and quarter notes. Dot, the short eighth and quarter notes. We've done both of those. Now, when we have connecting eighth notes, we use do and da. Do is on the beat, da is off the beat. For example, do da do da do da do da. You feel that? So we've added one more syllable. Da, another one, is for sustained notes, often accented. And the final, dot, strong, detached accent. So those are your keys to the suggested jazz articulation that begins you on the journey at this exercise. It uses all of those syllables in some way or another. Okay, let's do it together. You can see the screen and the note. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Dot, dot, do, da, do, dot. Dot, dot, do, da, do, dot. Da, do, do, dot. Da, dot, do, dot. Dot, dot, do, 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 dot. Dot, dot, do, da, do, dot. You'll notice that I've over accented, I've over articulated the sounds, and you'll want your students to do that as well. Once they've sang it once or twice, then have them play it, a concert pitch, and you'll be amazed how quick this puts them on the path for understanding articulations. So now let's take it into a piece. And this is going to be called Jazz Zone. And you'll just take a quick look, if you will, through the early parts of this. Da-do dot, da-do dot, da-do da-do, do-do-do dot, and so forth. So let's first of all listen to it. All right, now let's try it. Do it together. Do it with me. Dot, do-do dot, do-do-da-da, do-do dot dot, da-do-da-da, do-do dot dot, da-do-do-da, dot, dot, do-do dot, do-do dot, do-do dot, do-do-da-da, do-do dot dot, do-do-da-da, do-do dot dot, da-do-do-da, dot, dot, do-do dot. All right, good. And that's a great way to warm up in the ensemble rehearsals. It gets them started with understanding and articulating in a jazz style. Okay, now we've talked a lot about the rhythm section. Let's get a little more specific. The setup for the rhythm section you've seen. You've also heard why they need to see and hear each other and to know the appropriate sound of swing. Obviously, we want to use acoustic instruments whenever possible because those were the instruments that were the basis of the swing style. However, in many of the band rooms I've seen today, they aren't available. So you can take an electric guitar, an electric bass, and adjust the knobs on both the instrument itself and the amp to assimilate a pretty good style as used with the acoustic instruments. So let's listen to a little bit of this next piece. It's the U.S. Army Jazz Ambassadors, and the title is A Walking Thing. Listen to the rhythm section as well. Always have that 2/4 feel. Okay, nice, huh? That's what we want. And you notice, particularly in the drums, you hear more cymbals than you hear skins. That too is appropriate in the style of swing. Now, you've probably heard people talking about creating a groove. What is a groove? Well, my good friend Chuck Webb at Columbia College, Chicago says it's when the church ladies start to sway. Well, we may not all have church ladies in our band room, but we certainly have people that feel the music. And whether it's getting them to tap their toes or to move their body or whatever, it should certainly be a part of our attempts at creating a real jazz feel. Metronome for all. Everybody in the ensemble must have and must practice with a metronome. There are free downloads available on the internet, so there's no excuse. Everybody can have a metronome. Layering. It's a technique that I'm going to show you as we go into the next slide. But let me back up just for a minute here. The metronome importance, I'll give you an example. When I was the director of jazz studies at Florida International University in Miami, Florida, my trumpet teacher was Arturo Sandoval. And occasionally he would walk through the practice room area to just be sure that all of his trumpet students were practicing and rehearsing with the metronome. I guess if he can do it, we all should be able to. So let's look at how we begin to do this. This is Old School Blues, a piece that begins with the bass by itself and then adds instruments as we go along. I'm using this technique that I learned when in Miami with the Cuban musicians. They would begin their rehearsals or their jam sessions with the clave. The clave could go along by itself for maybe 10 or 15 minutes until everybody was in the groove. Then it was easy to add the next instrument and the next one and the next. So we would start with the bass in this case, then add the piano. And once that becomes solidified, repeat back to the beginning and add the guitar, repeat back to the beginning again and add the drums. Now, what happens when we add the ensemble? Well, believe it or not, the winds play beautifully because there is such a tight groove. Check it out. All right. So that's layering. Now, the clarity of sound we want in any musical ensemble, but we have to have a model, and that model must have balance. And in this case, I've chosen the Bill Watrous Big Band as the model. Let's check out this beautiful tune that plays next. It's called Low Life. It's the Bill Watrous Big Band, and toward the end, you're going to hear Bill play a fantastic solo. There's a 2/4 again. Get ready, here he comes. Yeah. Yeah, and you still feel that 2 and 4 all the way through. Bill's such a fantastic trombonist. We're so sorry to have lost him recently. But in that last recording also, you could hear every instrument in the ensemble. So that's what we're trying to do, is to find models here. All right, let's talk about directed student listening. You know, today students have the opportunity to listen to anything. Everything is on the internet, including the entire history of jazz, over 100 years. But they don't listen very much in depth. When I was growing up as a young player, I had records, and I probably only had 3 or 4, but I would listen to them over and over and over again for different things, so that I knew the piece inside and out. So in addition to that, we need models. and we'll create those as we go. Listen for the jazz articulation and phrasing, the form, the style, and many, many other things, which I will list for you in a handout. Suggested big band listening also, I will give you a list of 10 or 12 really excellent places to begin for students and you to listen. Well, we have to be able to listen to the professional level. That's the only level that I have my students try to attain. And nobody presents that more clearly than this next recording. This is by the Gordon Goodwin Big Fat Band, and it's entitled Count Bubba. Listen first to the saxes, trombones, trumpets, full ensemble, and then with the rhythm. Here we go. All right, the Big Fat Band. But as I said, there's your professional model. All right, selecting music, we all have to do it. And of course, evaluate our band, find the strengths and the weaknesses, and adjust as needed. Choose quality music. And by that, I mean jazz standards. That's the place to begin. And they are so handy because you can not only hear the recording of the music you're playing, but other people doing that same. I've always had a list at hand of the people that I like most, and I think you should do the same. All right, now rehearsing the jazz ensemble. This is what this is really all about, isn't it? So these are tips. At no time should the lead parts be doubled. Rotate your multiple players instead. We all have this problem at one point or another. And if we do, just remember that in your final performance or your whatever your contest or festival is, just have the players one on a part. Identify who has the melody and be sure everyone can hear it. The lead trumpet and the bari sax, these two parts should be distinguishable but not dominant. Have the lower parts play up to the lead player's volume to support, but not overpower the lead lines. Use proper articulations with all instruments. Unison lines can always be played softer than lines that are harmonized. Players should never use vibrato when playing unison or octave lines. A few more tips. Fast passages are always played more accurately when played lightly. Bring out moving lines. Think and play in 2 or 4 bar phrases whenever possible. Play all dynamic levels. Exaggerate the dynamics, not just on the top, loud side, but also on the soft side. Understand the texture of the combination of instruments that are used often in jazz charts. For example, Tenors and trombones playing the same line have the trombones play slightly on top of the saxes. And the same for altos and trumpets. Playing the same line, have the trumpets play lightly on top of the saxes sound. That's obviously due to the way that ensemble is set up. Now, ascending phrases have subtle crescendos. Descending phrases have subtle decrescendos. When using mutes, use plenty of air support to produce the desired musical texture. Understand the proper balance within the rhythm section. Continually keep the rhythm section aware of the balance with the wind sections. And the rhythm section should automatically play softer in two places, the head and the solo section. And by the way, these are all included in your handouts. All right, they also in the handout include swing style basics, jazz articulation, suggested recordings, and as I said, the list of rehearsing the jazz ensemble tips. Now, here are 3 valuable resources, and they're all ones that I've been involved with, so I know that they work. First and foremost is Jazz Pedagogy, the Jazz Educator's Handbook and Resource Guide. This is the basic handbook that all jazz educators are using around the world today. Jazz Zone, the beginning. It's a new beginning, innovative jazz method. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. Jazz Zone Together is an online magazine that we just created for jazz entertainment and education. So, jazz pedagogy is a crucial element that you need to have for your classroom or for your pedagogy class. The elements that are contained include an innovative DVD, which has videos of rehearsals at the middle school level with Willie Hill, the high school level with myself, and the university college level with Bob Mintzler. Really entertaining and educational. It's really an essential addition to your library. Next, Jazz Zone. This is the first lesson plan-based jazz band method created in the past 20 years. It includes 4 original big band charts and teaches the students like the masters of jazz learned. It's written to be played by a full jazz ensemble as well as additional instruments, flute, clarinet, oboe, baritone horn, and tuba. So it could be used in a concert band or any kind of an ensemble actually. And you learn swing from the iconic bands of Count Basie, Duke Ellington, and Benny Goodman. Lessons by 8 of the leading jazz educators and musicians in the world today are included. Jazz Zone Together, as I said, is an online jazz magazine that not only educates, but entertains at the same time. We have interviews at this point from 30 educators, musicians, jazz professionals, and so forth. You'll hear interviews with Arturo Sandoval, Darius Brubeck, Shelley Bird. My God, it just goes on and on and on. We also have Sherry Miracle, Carmen Bradford, and many others. Then in the educational side, the directors of jazz from the University of North Texas, the Brigham Young University, the University of Illinois, the University of Kentucky, and high school and middle school innovators, Victor Lopez and Michelle Fernandez. It's really fun, and they last about 30 to 45 minutes each. So check it out. You'll enjoy. So, your jazz toolbox, what do you need? Well, I believe that if you don't belong to JEN, the Jazz Educators Network, today, join. This is crucial because it will help you in a myriad of ways. And the annual conference is just dynamite. CDs, videos, and DVDs are essential. Jazz mentors and models, a jazz resource guide, method books, improvisation materials, charts that fit, a metronome for everyone, and a jazz at home plan. Well, it's been wonderful being with you today, and I want to thank print music source Bob Dingley, my wonderful, wonderful buddy who has helped me to produce all of these materials. Con Silmer, Mike Campice, thank you. And to you, thanks for allowing me to join with you today. It's been a delight. And I would just want to say, I hope that you have gotten something out of this. And my best wishes to you, stay safe, stay well, and keep swinging. Goodbye, friends.